What's sad is this isn't making mainstream news. I've seen the left try to downplay this and say it's no big deal. America pretends they value your values. That's not the only thing. So this one's from Morris Invest. Seeing more and more stuff on Twitter, just news in general about countries settling trade in their own currencies, ditching the dollar. It's happening at a much faster rate than we were expecting. I believe India was the latest. Okay, let's begin.
And you were there to watch. You'll be able to tell your kids about how the US dollar was once the strongest currency in the world, and you were there to watch it fall into ruin. You'll be able to explain to your kids that it was all self-inflicted, how arrogance, greed, and bullying led to the collapse. We'll get to that part of the story in a minute. But first, you'll also be able to tell your kids that you were there when they took away paper dollars and coins in favor of a US digital currency. And you'll be correct, because in fewer than 24 hours, the United States dollar changes forever. Tomorrow, the first week of April, the Federal Reserve begins the rollout of their new central bank digital US dollar. That's right. It's called the FedNow program, and it's going to replace your paper currency. Not overnight, but it's moving in that direction. And it will move the United States to a cashless society, a surveillance state where every transaction will be tracked and cataloged, where, as the Fed describes it, money that's in your account can even expire and become unusable. That's right, just like that Red Lobster gift card that you never used. One day you go and try to buy some popcorn shrimp and some Cheddar Bay biscuits, and the gift card doesn't even work anymore. Gone. You can read how the Fed plans to use the expiring money right on the Fed's website. China's already doing it. We already have a template for it. And many U.S. government museums, national parks, historical sites are no longer accepting paper dollars. Many of you have emailed me about this. You've tried to go and actually use dollars at different locations. Sorry, we don't accept cash. Want to go visit the Wright Brothers Museum? Don't bring cash. You'll have to use digital currency. Want to go to Smithsonian? Sorry, no cash. How about Mount Rainier National Park? Sorry, no cash allowed. We only accept digital. And many American businesses have already gone cashless as well. They'll pretend it's all about convenience, but really, it's all about control. The brilliant Catherine Austin Fitts recently described what going cashless would do to all of us.
The reality, as the financial system gets more controlling and more invasive, it's a little bit like bringing up a corral around us. And CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, and vaccine passports or digital IDs are sort of the last shutting of the gate. It's hard for many people to imagine the risks here because we're so used to living with financial transaction freedom. And we don't understand that when this gate closes on us, we literally will be sitting in a system where the central banks believe that our assets belong to them and they can dictate where we can spend money and what we can spend money on.
It's frightening, and she's 100% correct.
Yeah, and I've seen the left try to downplay this and say it's no big deal, or they'll make excuses and say, well, some of these countries are pegged to the dollar. Well, they won't be pegged to the dollar forever. I believe UAE did a deal with somebody else for whatever, and the dinar or whatever it's called, I can't remember. Dirhams are pegged to the dollar, which is not an issue for now until it's not pegged anymore, or they choose to peg to the new currency BRICS is trying to create. The point isn't that, hey, it doesn't affect us now, it's not a big deal. It's the fact that once everything's in place, you can switch overnight to something completely different. That means American hegemony dead, quite literally overnight. It's going to be huge, man. No more printer go brr, no more printing away our debt, none of that.
Correct. But that's only part of the story, and perhaps that's the smallest part of the story, if you can believe that. Now to the elephant in the room and the larger reasons we're seeing the decline of the US dollar. But first, I decided to go sophisticated for today's video. I could have kept it super simple, but instead we need to talk about some specific details. And you are a very smart audience that will watch this video until the end. So we're going to go sophisticated today, okay? Let's do it. And for that, let me tell you a story. Let me start here. Back in 2014, the country of Russia annexed the territory of Crimea. We're not going to get into why they did it. You're a smart audience. You probably already know why they did it.
Yeah, India has opted to offer its Indian rupee as a trade currency alternative to the US dollar after it unveiled the latest dynamic and responsive foreign trade policy in a bid for de-dollarization. That's not the only thing, because I saw something about China and Singapore. I want to say that they're already I can't find the news article, but they're trying to lay the framework for an Asian currency amongst multiple nations. Singapore proposed this, I think, 20 years ago.
But what we're going to do is look at what happened next. Now, the United States and Western allies then slapped massive sanctions on Russia. Then the value of the Russian ruble went down. But then something remarkable started to happen. And this is perhaps the beginning of the end of the US dollar. You can pinpoint the moment. Here's what happened. As the ruble started to decline, Russia was then forced to ramp up production of just about everything that they produce, from oil to lithium to silver to uranium, for nuclear fuel, natural gas. They kicked everything into high gear, became self-sufficient, became the dominant exporter of many of these minerals in every category. Want uranium for your nuclear reactors? You're probably going to be buying it from Russia. In fact, the United States currently buys almost all of its uranium from Russia. Isn't that funny? They did this because their ruble was going down. They needed to produce more oil in order to sell more oil to compensate for the lower prices that it was receiving in US dollars, while the United States was destroying its own manufacturing base under President Obama.
For those folks who've lost their job right now because a plant went down to Mexico, that isn't going to make you feel better.
Russia and China were doing the exact opposite. But all this oil production ended up putting enormous pressure on the global oil market because now there was a lot of oil being produced. That led to lower prices in oil. And guess what? A decline in the demand for US dollars. They were making too much oil, and the petrodollar value plummeted. So US sanctions on Russia drove down oil prices and therefore demand for US dollars. Then came the war in Ukraine. And even more ridiculous sanctions. This time, they threw everything they had, the kitchen sink, at Russia.
And I'm taking robust action to make sure the pain of our sanctions is targeted at Russian economy.
The sanctions have crushed trade between Russia and the United States.
Every time I hear him talk, I'm just waiting for the mumbling of words. And I'm taking it over Russia today.
States and its allies. This has further led to lower economic growth and a decline in the value of the US dollar. And the Fed forecasting negative GDP growth in the United States with a massive recession about to hit our shores. But in Russia, the opposite happened. The IMF is forecasting GDP growth in Russia, and the value of the Russian ruble has hit record highs. And then this week, the bomb dropped against the US dollar.
Describing their talks, Putin said, "We are in favor of using the Chinese yuan for settlements between Russia and the countries of Asia, Africa, and Latin America." So, the world's second largest economy and its largest energy exporter are together actively trying to dent the dollar's dominance as the anchor of the international financial system.
The petrodollar system was established in the early 1970s when the United States made a deal with Saudi Arabia to price oil.
See, man, here's the crazy stuff that I'm reading here. Let me show you guys, or at least read it. High-speed rail from China to Singapore through Malaysia and Thailand. That's what's being talked about right now. Where's this other? In the next several days, leaders of many countries is visiting China, Singapore PM, Spain PM, France president, European Commission president, Brazil president. China's spearheading a lot of change, a lot of investment and development in a few places in the world. Other countries want in on that. America, we're threatening other places that if they don't follow our, quote, values, that we're going to punish them with taxation, with the threat of pulling our funds that we send over, militarily threatening people, 3-letter alphabet agencies, plotting coups and shit, destabilizing regions. China comes with money, although some of the loans are super predatory, and basically if you lose the ability to pay them back, they take over your port for like 100 years. True. But we're forcing people to do business our way with the threat of hitting them with our big ass stick. I mean, regardless, trusting world superpowers, everybody acts in their own best interest. It's just the way America is acting in her interest at the moment is off-putting the global community. They know China values their Chinese citizens above everybody else, and it's not an issue. The thing is, America pretends they value your values, but then turns around and screws you for a lot of your or whatever business deals you've made, right? We pretend to be friends while subverting their democracy in order to extract their resources. China doesn't subvert anybody's democracy. They don't pretend to want to extract your resources, and they'll pay you for them straight up. And they won't tell you that your kids have to believe in this, that you should legalize that. They're just, yeah, whatever, bro. You guys live your life the way you want. You're a sovereign nation, a sovereign people. We just want to do business. You got goods that we want. You got materials, resources, raw minerals, etc. We go into a place and try to change it to make it look like it's us or make it look like it's American society. There's a viral clip going around about, I don't know if it was a Ugandan PM or something like that, how America is pushing on them and writing them hard on, rainbow flag rights. And the guy was asking the same question, well, what about the Middle East, where it's punishable by death? Why are we mum? Why is America so quiet with its trading partners in the Middle East? But they'll come over here to Africa and tell us what we have to do and how we have to live, or they'll pool all their funds and businesses and all the dealings that we've signed for here. So they want to punish us for not living like them, but they won't do it to people in the Middle East. Isn't that weird? I mean, it makes sense. You can't selectively call out the hypocrisy. And most nations don't even respect us anymore on the world stage. We've become a joke, honestly. We're falling behind. It's becoming an embarrassment to label yourself as an American on the world stage. That's sad. I'll keep finding some more stuff all this guy says.
In U.S. dollars. This agreement made it necessary for other countries to hold large amounts of U.S. dollars in order to purchase oil from OPEC countries, which then, of course, helps support the demand for the dollar. And it made the world's dominant currency. It let America browbeat the rest of the world. It let America go into massive debt because there would always be another country around to buy up the U.S. debt.
The dollar is America's last surviving superpower. It gives Washington unrivaled economic and political muscle. It can slap sanctions on countries unilaterally, which frees that country out of large parts of the world economy. And Washington can spend freely, certain that its debt will be bought up by the rest of the world.
And what's sad is this isn't making mainstream news often. This is tucked away in some off-peak viewership hour, late at night or early morning when not many people are tuning in. And they'll mention it once for like 10 minutes, if that. 5-minute little reel here with slides and somebody talking. Instead, I guarantee you guys, if you turn on mainstream media right now, we are absolutely dominated by a certain somebody going to jail or being arraigned. We got homeless people in the streets, left and right, tents popping up, turning into little towns and cities. Kids can't afford to eat. They're being essentially kicked off the school meal plans. Those are being cut. Education is cut. College tuition rising for jobs that don't exist. Interesting. The news is dominated by some dude getting arraigned. Borders and all that security stuff. Yeah, let's not talk about it. Dude.
Well,
it makes me sick, dude. I hate even covering politics. I'll be honest. There's moments where I get really into politics and then you just get turned off so much. It's like the equivalent of some of these like stale red pill channels that all they talk about or blame women for everything is women's fault. If women didn't do it, if women, without going a level deeper still, seeing that it's society at large, same shit with politics. It's finger pointing from team blue, finger pointing from team red. And all it is day after day. It's like fear porn. Day after day, dude, nonstop. Here's how the Democrats are going to ruin your life. Here's how the Republicans are going to ruin your life. Here's the latest gaffe from the latest side on the left, the latest side on the right. The society is going to hell. You need to vote for us. Vote for us. Elections are coming up. Vote for us. Isaac, thanks, bro. There's no war in Ba Sing Se. Yeah.
It's all changing right before our eyes. The United States has been using its control over the dollar to weaponize its economic power, using sanctions and other measures to pressure other countries to comply with its foreign policy goals. The sanctions show just how desperate the United States is to try to replace dependence on Russia and China for all of our minerals and manufacturing. We are sitting on mountains of uranium, lithium, gold, oil, and yet we don't have the infrastructure to pull it out of the ground anymore. We only have one active lithium mine in the United States, and we're about to double the amount of electric cars driving on American roads.
Who remembers California coming out with that piece of legislation? I don't even know if they signed it. Something about the timeline to which they want to adopt electric cars. And it was something nutty like 2030, something like that. They were pushing their timeline up dramatically, 2035. So you can only sell electric cars after that year. Funnily enough, shortly after that article comes out, everybody was told to not use the power grid as much because it's under stress. So how are we going to get around town, guys, if the grid can't handle electric cars in those numbers. Seems like control to me. Stay in your house, citizen. The electric grid will turn on shortly. Then you will be allowed to charge and leave. Here's your latest order of crickets. Put them in between 2 slices of bread and make your sandwich.
The Biden administration is throwing billions of dollars at companies to build charging stations, solar panel parking lots, you name it. Anything in the renewable space is getting massive billions of dollars in government grants. And that's because millions more EVs are coming out, but we have to rely on China and Russia to make it happen. It's crazy. Yesterday, the head of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, admitted the truth about our reliance on China and Russia for minerals and resources. It was actually a pretty big admission moment for her.
We know this is an era where we rely on one single supplier, China. 98% of our rare earth supply, 93% of our magnesium, 97% of our lithium, just to name a few.
And literally on the same day that she made that statement, Ford Motor Company admitted that it's spending billions and teaming up with China to mine minerals for its electric cars. They're going to do this in Indonesia. Yeah, that's right. This is how bad it's gotten that Ford is teaming up with China. Here's Ford yesterday talking about this.
Not just the mining, but the processing the materials. Actually, even if they're mined, let's say in the U.S., nickel, most of it is sent back to China to get processed.
So the U.S. is trying to move away from Russia and China and bring manufacturing back to the United States, trying to incentivize businesses to go green with billions of dollars in grants and tax cuts. If you're building a new condo...
Carbon taxes going green. The world's gonna end if we don't change. Isn't taxation a form of control? Oh, man. We got to appease the greenies.
Complex in the United States, the government will pay you to install electric vehicle charging stations. Hotels, the same thing. So, of course, all of these businesses are taking free money and building these things for the tax breaks. They'd be stupid not to. The United States is facing the perfect storm for the U.S. dollar. China, Russia, Saudi Arabia ditching the U.S. dollar to
India now too.
Settle oil transactions. On top of that, America has outsourced its manufacturing, its minerals production overseas. And the Federal Reserve moving to a digital version of the US dollar that can be expanded and printed at any moment because it's not tied to any physical representation of money, no coins, no dollars. So I'm going to be watching this slow death of the dollar unfold right here on this channel. So that's the news update part of today's video. Now I want to tell you about today's sponsor for today's video, which is tied directly to these government grants for electric vehicles in the United States. Investors bought shares at 60 cents a share a short time ago. Yeah, they raised, literally, you can search around and try to find any other company that's going to be growing by 300%. You could probably count them on one hand. It's insane. So why is that? Well, here's why. There are currently no household brand name charging stations in the world right now. There's no Coca screen. And right now there's...
Dude, his ad placement is good. I can't tell where that ended.
percent, not 30%, but 300% growth. So that's why I'm personally betting big on this company. Here's their stock tick. Stock is trading at bought shares at holding on to their shares because it's buying shares of the details on why I personally think I know about them. So we're the first right to laugh about it. All right. So this company, Hypercharge, just told investors for electric vehicle charging stations this year and then grow these stations. Again, it doesn't matter what I'm also a smart investor, and EVs aren't going away either. They're only going to make more of them.
Holy crap, bro. This is the most impressive ad read I've ever seen. The last part of his video is an ad read. He tied that in great. All right. That ended there. Morris Invest. Good ad read, dude. Yeah.